Alrighty, everybody. Good evening. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. It is good to see you guys here. We're doing a bit of a afternoon update here. I told you guys we'll hop on live here. This afternoon. We'll also do another live stream likely tonight. So stay tuned for that, as we're definitely going to be live yet again for another update. Anyways, guys, I hope everyone is doing well. Hope you guys are having a good old day and stuff. Anyway, so we do have another update here for this winter storm that we're actually watching here. This one, like I said, could definitely be a pretty good storm as well. And obviously, we just had that really crazy snowstorm here last weekend here. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and all that stuff. And now, like I said, this weekend we actually have another storm that we're watching here. But what's up, Hockey? Good to see you, my friend. Saying hi. What's up? What's up, Leaky Eye? Good to see you. Saying hi, Andrew. What's up? What's up, JW? Saying cold here in Indy with 9 inches of snow. Really? Wow. Goodness, man. Well, be safe out there. What's up, Peachy? Good to see ya. Rose says, how many inches do I think in Virginia Beach? Well, let's hop over to models here. Now, first of all, remember, totals are still a little iffy. I mean, we're still a couple days out, of course, so there can be a lot of changes in the totals. But first of all, let me just compare what the models look like now. So we're going to hop over here to my current workflow here. We're going to pull up our 3-panel, accumulation, 3-panel reflectivity here. So before we get into that, so there is 3 panels. The American model is on the right panel. Okay, so this one over here, this is the American model. The one in the middle is the European ECMWF. And the left panel here, this is the GEM. European model in the middle and the American model on the right. So just wanted to let you guys know. So that way you guys kind of know exactly like what model what you're essentially looking at. Anyway, so everything really begins here on pretty much late Friday. You can see here, as we approach our way over here into actually early Saturday for the most part, you can start to see we do develop a little bit of snow out there by the Mid-Atlantic here. I mean, not just the Mid-Atlantic, but also bits of the Southeast here as well. We got areas like Georgia, possibly Alabama, Tennessee, North South Carolina, Virginia potentially getting some of this here. Out there throughout some of the Appalachian Mountains, bits of the Southeast and the lower Mid-Atlantic. We'll be starting to see some snow here pretty much for the morning of Saturday. Then we continue to push our way further down into Saturday. So by the evening time at this point, I mean, we have a full-fledged snowstorm going on here, for the Mid-Atlantic for the most part, like the lower Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast here. Once again, Georgia, seeing possibly a bit of snowfall at this point. North and South Carolina probably seeing some heavy snow here too. And also Virginia potentially involved there as well. So, and then you can see that low that really starts to strengthen quite a bit here. The Canadian model shows that low at 1,000 millibars, which is, a pretty impressive low. It's pretty strong. Then you got the Euro, which has that low down to 995. So the European model seems to be the most strongest, earlier speaking in the models here. So then we work our way over here into pretty much early Sunday, and the storm continues to push its way to the northeast. Now, here's the thing. There is a bit of disagreement here. There's actually a little bit of disagreement that has kind of come together. And you can see the Canadian model doesn't really have much snow happening for the Northeast. I mean, you can see up there by New England, areas like New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. Some of these areas not really experiencing hardly any snow. But then you got like the European model over here that does show maybe a little bit of snow out there by the coastal areas of the Northeast. And then you got the American model, which, kind of agrees not nearly as much snow for the Northeast. So from the way that things look as of now, the heaviest snowfall in the system will probably be out there by the Carolinas, kind of the way that the latest models are suggesting. Now, remember, this is still fairly early guidance here. I mean, this is here for Saturday. I mean, today, what's today? Today's Tuesday, I think. I am pretty sure today is Tuesday. But anyways, oh no, today's Wednesday. Okay. So anyways, but still a couple of days out, still about 3 days out before the system starts. So, I mean, there's going to be maybe a little bit of disagreement here. But regardless, it does seem like we're going to be starting off with a pretty good amount of snowfall. But anyway, so then we work our way over here basically into the late portion of Sunday. We got a really, really strong storm on our hands at this point. The pressure down into the 960s, 970 millibar range. That is a very, very, very strong low here. And you can actually see here, I mean, the models do show, some of that snow eventually kind of hitting the Northeast here. I think the greatest, the greatest confidence we have for the Northeast is areas out by like Cape Cod. Considering they're kind of sticking way out there, and it seems like you can see all three models do suggest, potentially some heavy snowfall, falling at, these regions here, kind of for the later portion here of Sunday. So, eastern Massachusetts, out by like Cape Cod and area, should also monitor this one as well. But then, of course, the system just kind of rolls out here pretty much by the morning, afternoon of Monday. So, like I said, everything's kind of starting here early Saturday, going through Sunday. And it should be out pretty much here by Monday. Now, one thing is that's guaranteed, with this system for a lot of people, despite you not probably seeing hardly any snowfall, one thing is that you can see how tight these ISO bars are. So these lines that you see, you see all these lines here. So these represent an area of equal pressure. So for each of the line, you follow the line, the pressure's the same along that entire line. And you could see how you get closer to the middle of that low pressure, how the how these lines really kind of compress together. Now that's basically telling us that the pressure is dropping off at a really quick rate, and because of the pressure that's dropping, that's telling us that there's a lot of airflow going from that higher pressure to the west to that lower pressure towards the east, in which, one of the things that a lot of people are going to be feeling regardless of precipitation is wind. This is likely going to be quite a windy storm here. So a lot of people will probably see a bit of snow, but then majority of people will see, a lot of wind out of the system here. So wind is going to be one thing we got to really look out for. Anyways, good afternoon, Vienna. Good to see ya. Will Indiana get the storm? No, the storm will be well far east of Indiana. Let's see here. What's up, Durango? Good to see my friend. Hope you're doing well. Ash just says, hopefully, it's snow this time, not ice. From the way models are, it doesn't look like there's hardly any ice involved with the system. So, yeah, no, I don't think we're going to have much of an ice storm, comparing to the last storm. So that'll definitely be good. So no ice. Let's see here. If this hits New England, what am I looking for totals up by Mount Washington? Is it Mount Washington in New Hampshire? I'm pretty sure. Here, let's see. We'll pull up Mount Washington. Mount Washington. Or is this... There's a lot of Mount Washingtons. Could you tell me the state? That would actually help a ton, because, without knowing the state, there's literally... I don't think you could see it. Here, maybe if I move over here. There's, like... Hold on a minute. Here we go. Mount Washington. Look how many Mount Washingtons there are. There's a lot of them. So we got Maryland. We got, I'm assuming you might be the one in Maryland. We got Ohio. We got, what is that? Los Angeles in California. We got Kentucky. I don't think you're any of those ones. But yeah, it'll definitely help if you could if you could tell me which one. But anyways, like I said, we're definitely going to be dealing with quite a storm, and I really think that the Carolinas are probably going to be in for, some of the heaviest here of this system. So we'll definitely need to keep a close eye out there for this. That's where the main accumulation I think is going to be, or the main heavy snowfall is going to be here. So anyway, so real quickly, I do want to take a peek at those totals, but like I said, a bit of a disclaimer, it is way too early to trust these totals, just because, we're still several days out. Tomorrow, we could probably start to kind of see how they look and maybe go off on some of the accumulations, given we'll be a day closer, and at that point, it'll be 2 days away. But we're still kind of 3 days away, which, in my opinion, is still a little far for snowfall, but we'll look at it anyways here. So let's pull up the American GFS model here first. So we'll go ahead and do that real quickly. So we'll go ahead and pull up the 10-to-1 ratio here. So this is how much snow that we potentially could see. I'm actually going to bring up my personal color map that I have. I like this one better. Anyway, so also while I do this, I am going to bring up the we'll see. We'll go ahead and bring up the numbers as well, so you can just see what numbers we're talking about essentially. So. Let's also make this a little bit bigger as well. So there you go. So now you can kind of see some of the totals. So looking at the American model, this is the American GFS. You could really see, we're talking maybe some pretty good snowfall out of the system here, especially for like, central southern Virginia, according to the American GFS. The heaviest by far of it, according to this model, really wants it out by like central, North Carolina, out there by like areas of Raleigh, really could see a pretty good amount of accumulation here. We're talking, well over a foot in some areas, according to the American model. No, like I said, still a little early for those accumulations to be for sure, but we could be talking some pretty heavy amount of snowfall. Now you can see how the American model barely has the Northeast being skimmed here. Honestly, really not a lot. It seems like most accumulation is going to be out there by the Mid-Atlantic. So then we compare that to the Euro, the ECMWF. So this model is obviously a lot different here in almost every way, except for the fact that the heaviest snow is kind of out there by central North Carolina. At that point in time, I mean, from where we are now, it seems like central North Carolina has a really good shot at seeing some of the heaviest amount of accumulation here. So if you're in North Carolina, this could be something you need to look out for. But yeah, way less totals according to the Euro as opposed to the American GFS model here. And we go up the Northeast here. Now, it does show a little bit more accumulation out by like eastern Long Island, maybe out there by like eastern Massachusetts, by Cape Cod, like we were talking about. We could be seeing a pretty good amount of snow out there. But, for a lot of like the interior New England, it seems like the system is mostly going to be pushed to the east. But like I said, those winds are something that you're definitely going to be feeling here regardless. So anyway, so that is the Euro. And then, of course, we do have ourselves the Canadian model. Now, this one is kind of in the middle between what the Euro as well as the GFS had to say. Now, first of all, as you can see, some of those totals out by like central North Carolina are pretty darn heavy. I mean, we're talking over a foot here still. So we have the American GFS, we have the Canadian model that agree that central North Carolina could see possibly up to a foot of snowfall, maybe a local amounts, maybe a little bit higher. But then, of course, you have the Euro, which shows those totals obviously a little bit less here. But anyways, but still, the heaviest snowfall will be out there. I mean, this could lead up through like Virginia Beach area too, maybe like eastern Maryland here, eastern Delaware, and of course we go up towards the Northeast. But this model really doesn't show. Sorry, I just didn't have it fully loaded there. But this model also does show, that we could see some heavy snowfall out there by eastern Massachusetts here in general. So, I mean, you could definitely see. These models, I mean, they show definitely a pretty good amount of snowfall here. It just depends on how far west the system does ultimately go. That's very important for determining how much snowfall we're going to see, is how far west that system does approach. I mean, at this point in time, we know that this is going to be a very strong storm, and we know that this system is going to cause some heavy impacts, but determining on where those specific impacts are going to be is still yet to be found, except for the fact that, we have a lot of growing confidence at this point, like we mentioned, that the Carolinas, especially North Carolina, especially there towards the center of the state, we really could be seeing a lot of accumulations here. So once again, this is the Canadian model here. Once again, we'll hop back to Euro really quickly. So the Euro has that system pushed a little bit further east here, not as much snow towards, North Carolina or whatever, but still up there towards the coastal Northeast here. I mean, you can definitely see a pretty good amount. Once again, eastern Massachusetts there, you can see really seeing potentially a good amount of snowfall. Then, of course, lastly, we have the American GFS, which once again shows more snow for the Mid-Atlantic, kind of similar to what the Canadian model, the GDPS, does show. But a lot of the heavy stuff up for the Northeast is pushed eastward here. But still, once again, eastern Massachusetts still kind of in that there. Anyways, what's up, Free? Thank you. Good to see you. Saying, what will the zip code get from the storm or winds? Well, let me pull up real quickly. Let me just see what we got going on here. I never did hear back about Mount Washington. So let's go ahead and head on over here to Georgia. So you, my friend... you're up by Macon. I don't think we're gonna have much impacts out of this storm here. If we hop over back to the models here, so this is the American model. We don't really have any snowfall out there. Euro doesn't really show much either. You're kind of in that really light stuff here. However, the Canadian model does show maybe a little bit more snowfall nearby. So, I mean, 2 out of the 3 models don't show like any snow happening, and then the one model that does, it's showing maybe about 1 to 2 inches. So I wouldn't really expect a whole lot of snowfall. I mean, you might see a little bit of snowfall, but don't expect any big accumulations or anything like that. Now, getting into the wind, because that was something that we're actually gonna need to talk about here. So let's pull up our max accumulated wind gusts here. We're gonna start with the American GFS model here again. So we'll go ahead and start out with the GFS. So in terms of these winds, I mean, they're going to be quite ridiculous here. I mean, we're going to be seeing some really, really strong winds. Like I mentioned, while a lot of people, pretty much west of 95 will not see a whole lot of snowfall, or basically for the Northeast anyways, we'll definitely be seeing a lot of strong wind gusts here overall. So as you can see, I mean, some of these coastal areas could see some wind gusts here as high as maybe 40, maybe 50 miles an hour. I mean, we're talking some serious winds out here. So definitely going to be quite strong. I mean, that goes all through the mid-Atlantic, all through the Northeast and whatnot. So got to look out for that. But for Macon specifically, yeah, we could get a little bit of gusty winds here, from this storm here as well as it does go through. So then you compare that to Euro, over here to the European ECMWF here. So this model out to sea has still a ridiculous amount of wind. Do you see how strong those wind gusts could be out there? This is well east of North Carolina from the Euro. I don't expect this to happen, but Euro wants like 120 mile an hour wind gusts out there, which is well east of North Carolina. But for North Carolina specifically, those wind gusts here, I mean, out by like Nags Head, some of those areas like in eastern North Carolina, I mean, we're talking maybe some heavy gusts according to the Euro, like upwards of 70, maybe 80. I'm not going to count on that right now. That is just one model that suggests it. I think the GFS didn't show nearly that much. Well, you know what? The American model does show actually, maybe 60, maybe 70 mile an hour winds here. Now let's go ahead and compare that to the Canadian here. The Canadian model, once that actually decides it wants to load here. Wow, you know what? Canadian model also shows maybe 70, 80 mile an hour winds out there for eastern North Carolina here. But for the majority of the people through the mid-Atlantic here, I mean, we're talking mostly 40, maybe 50 mile an hour wind gusts up the coast, from the mid-Atlantic up into the Northeast here. But wow, dude. I mean, that's just, because of how strong the low is, how big of a storm this thing is. That's definitely going to be pretty heavy. Also showing like Cape Cod out there, eastern Massachusetts, like 70 mile an hour wind gust potential out there from the Canadian. Let's see, GFS showing not as much, maybe 50, 60 mile an hour winds. And then, of course, the Euro. Euro shows like 70. So, yeah, like I said, definitely going to have quite the strong winds here, likely on this system. And, some areas could see some really, really strong winds. So we're definitely going to do some coverage here for this storm. Anyways, let's see, nor'easter yike. Yeah, it's a big one. It's definitely gonna be a big one. Regardless, at this point, yes, the system is gonna be a monster of a storm here. But like I said, determining on where those exact impacts, that snow line, we still need to see if it's gonna be further west or further east or in between. Is Michigan supposed to see any more snow? Let me see. I do need to pull up here. We'll hop back over to the 3-panel real quickly. So it does look like, if we load up the models here, give it 1 second. Yeah, it does look like Michigan might see a little bit more snowfall. It seems like you guys are just going to be dealing with a little bit of lake effect snow over the next little bit. So, yeah, it does appear so. All right, let's see here. Oh, that's bad, Kevin. That's real bad. Let's see. I heard the waves could be as 20 feet in the Carolinas and Virginia Beach, 60 mile an hour winds. Crazy. Honestly, I don't know about that much. I haven't seen any guidance to suggest that much, but given those winds, I guarantee those waves are going to be pretty nasty out there for sure. Some calling it a bomb cyclone. Yeah. That is another name for it because of just how quick and how strong that low becomes. Let's see here. Going out to say even Virginia, not getting anything. Looks moving more southwest with dry air slot in eastern North Carolina. Well, the models do not really show much dry air for eastern North Carolina, that system. I mean, you could see, all three of the models here. We have all three main ones. We have Canadian, GFS, the American, and the Euro. And you can see that we do have, a bit of heavy snowfall. It seems like they've been trending like this, too. I haven't really seen much westerly movement per se. A matter of fact, I've actually been seeing this storm slightly move further eastward because, before in the last update or so, last 2 updates I think we did show that there was more snow for the Northeast than there is from the current run. So, anyways, let's see. We've been seeing a lot of bomb cyclone talk. Yeah, it's just, like I said, because of how strong this low is, it's not exaggerated either. I mean, it's real. It's real. I mean, just look how strong and how large this low is. These models are showing like, 960s, 970 millibar range, which is equivalent to about a Category 2, Category 3 hurricane, in relation to pressure, which that's pretty crazy. I mean, some of the models, as it skims off to the northeast, actually even says, that the system could get down as low as maybe the mid 960s, maybe even the lower 960s. I mean, we're talking really low pressure on this storm here. I know we don't really cover Canada too much, but my folks up in Nova Scotia could even really get some heavy impacts out of the storm here. I mean, you can see, Nova Scotia here, all three models, really suggests that we could see possibly some heavy snow out of the system, and by then that low would be, really strong. Free thinking says thank you. Yep, no problem. Kate says, good afternoon, everyone. How does it look for northeastern Connecticut? Models are still a little iffy, for areas out by Connecticut. You do got some models, especially the Euro here, really digging into the Northeast, including Connecticut. But then you got like the Canadian that keeps it mostly towards the coast there, and then you got GFS, but like I said, it wouldn't take much of a nudge to the west to really include you in some snow. So, I mean, we'll just have to see, once again, 3 days before the storm starts, so there's absolutely enough time for things to still change a little bit, an easterly track, a westerly track, whatever, either or, could still occur between now and then, so definitely keep an eye on it. Rose says, yeah, Fox weather saying even AccuWeather. Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's just terminology. I mean, that is what this storm is. It is considered a quote-unquote bomb cyclone because, once again, how large, how strong, the system really is. It's a monster. It's a big storm. I mean, you guys can see, just how large this thing is. And, these ISO bars here, you can see they're really crammed together, telling us that the pressure is dropping off dramatically over a short period of time and over a short distance, which, like I mentioned, really just tells you that those winds are going to be strong. Whenever you see tight ISO bar gradients like that, that tells you there's a rapid change in pressure and the air is moving, flowing from that higher pressure to the west to the lower pressure towards the east in the center of that storm. So, and like I said, it's not perfectly linear. It doesn't flow directly from the west to the east, into the center. It kind of revolves around the storm. These things rotate counterclockwise here in the northern hemisphere because of the Coriolis effect. Here in the northern hemisphere, they rotate counterclockwise. But yeah, they're not direct. But regardless, bottom line, what I do want you to know out of that is that because of how crammed these are together, there's a lot of flow going on, and there's going to be a lot of strong winds because of that. So, anyways. Kate says, thank you. You are very, very welcome. No problem. Rose says, I'm glad either way. I got my groceries, got my water, got some coffee. I'm set. You said I'm sad, and then I saw your correction as soon as I said that, or as soon as I saw that. Not sad. Set. Good. Glad to see that you're not sad and you're set. So that's definitely good. But anyways, guys, well, if you guys have any questions, like I said, any zip code forecasts or anything like that, let me know. I'll just let you know generally what we can expect out there. I am gonna hop back to the accumulations here real quickly. Once again, it's obviously too early to really trust these accumulations and whatnot, but we will pull them up just to kind of show you where the models, kind of stand here right now. With everything. I do need to just have this set up permanently so I can easily switch back and forth to it. So I think by next stream we'll have that set for you guys. But anyways, yeah, we're definitely going to be seeing a pretty good amount of snowfall. And once again, the main thing right now, from the way it looks, the best amount of agreement in the system is by far the Carolinas and, Virginia. These areas, in here, have a pretty good shot at, maybe seeing some snow here. I mean, maybe a little bit further south, more specifically like some of these areas here, have a pretty good shot at seeing some snowfall. That's kind of where the middle ground is between all these models. This is the American GFS. Then you got the Euro, which shows some of the heaviest out there as well. And then, of course, you got the Canadian, which also shows some of the heaviest out there too. I think for Virginia, some of the heaviest could be out by like Virginia Beach and whatnot. You guys in the last storm got a bit of ice, not really any snow at all, or hardly any snow if you did. But this storm is completely different. This storm you'll likely see a lot of snow, because that cold air will be, well overway and keeping it cold. So, anyways, let's see. Instead of a blizzard, can we call it a snow hurricane? Snow-a-cane. It kind of is, Like I said, the pressure equivalent is, pretty similar to Category 3 storm, which is pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. All right, let's see here. A lot of power outages. Be ready. Stay warm. Absolutely, yeah. Especially with those strong winds here, that's going to be the main thing that'll really knock out power. Is all those strong winds. And like I mentioned, a lot of people, for the Northeast might not see a lot of snow. I mean, you could, like I said, we'll just have to kind of figure that out. But one thing you guys will see is a lot of winds. It's going to be very, very windy out there in the Northeast here. Once again, we're looking at those ISO bars, that pressure gradient there, really showing a quick drop off in pressure. It's showing us a lot of flow, in the winds, from the high to the low. Definitely going to be pretty windy for a lot of people, for sure. Especially those gusts, like we mentioned, for a lot of the Mid-Atlantic Northeast, we could see gusts upwards of 50 miles an hour or so. So pretty crazy. And on the coastal areas too, like we were mentioning here, like eastern North Carolina and of course maybe like eastern Massachusetts. I mean, some of these gusts could be pretty wild. Like I said, I was really amazed right now at the amount of guidance that suggests that eastern North Carolina's coast, out by like Nags Head and some of those areas, could see possibly, upwards of like 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It's like, wow, dude. Yeah, those models are really not playing around with those winds out there, for sure. Let's see here. Weather Channel talking about Florida getting freezing weather could affect crops. What do I think? Absolutely. Florida's getting ready to get really plummeted by cold air, and unfortunately, I'm a victim of it because I'm in Central Florida. So, yeah, it ain't gonna be very pretty. Florida is about to get some of the coldest air in a while. So this is Sunday morning. You can actually see. I mean, Central Florida, like Orlando specifically, could be dealing with like temperatures in the mid-20s. That is really cold. That's definitely going to break some records for sure. And of course the night after that here for Monday morning too. I mean, temperatures once again kind of in the mid-20s there. It looks like, I mean, even almost to Miami, freezing temperatures. That's crazy. Miami right here showing like mid-upper 30s here for Monday morning. Really cold stuff. And absolutely, especially crops down here. They're used to the warmer weather, and stuff like that, like palm trees and stuff like that. They're warmer climate plants. And whenever you introduce a lot of cold air into Florida, that's sub-freezing, they don't like it very much. And yeah, it can kill some crops for sure. Let's see here. I'm pretty pumped. Should I be getting snow in Jacksonville, North Carolina? Let me pull up Jacksonville. I'm not too sure where that's at, but North Carolina does have a good shot. That's actually where the majority of the models really do show the heaviest accumulation. Okay, so yeah, you're in eastern North Carolina. You're actually not far from Wilmington. So if we were to pull up the comparison again here, let's hop back over here to the models, and we're gonna load up our 3-panel comparison again. So if we were to pull this up, we were to look out there. Regarding snowfall, yeah, I mean, I think you actually have a really good shot at it. I mean, you could see while these model tiles are loading here, I mean, you could see that, all 3 models do show, some pretty heavy snowfall potential out there. So, yeah, absolutely. You're actually in a pretty good area, I think. So, anyways, don't say Virginia Beach. yeah, Virginia Beach could actually be really included as well in some heavy snowfall. So, and that's another area. Virginia Beach needs to really look out for this one. Absolutely. Let's see. Calvin says, "Good afternoon, Andrew. Good afternoon, my friend. Hope you're doing well." Terry says 20s for Florida. Wow. Yeah, it's gonna be cold. Very, very cold. Rose says, "That's why I trust you totally." Well, I appreciate that, Rose. I really do. Like I said, I'll keep it factual with you guys. I'll let you guys know what everything's talking about. Like I said, I go off of agreement and what the models, seem to rely on, or what they seem to agree on most, I should say. And the stuff that they don't really agree, you just kind of throw that in the dumpster. You get a lot of people who like to hype up some of those crazy model runs that, freak people out and draw them into the videos and whatever. It's stupid. But no, with us, we make sure that we blend everything and, see everything, see what they all agree on, essentially. And that's what we go off of for sure. But anyways, like I said, guys, if y'all have any questions throughout this, I mean, once again, please do not hesitate to ask here. We're here for you guys. We want to help you guys out and, keep you guys up to date with the weather and stuff. But anyway, so like I said, the beginning of this event here, we're going to go over this again here with the timing. So it looks like the beginning of this system is going to happen pretty much early Saturday. That's when we're going to really start to see some of that snow developing, possibly there towards maybe some areas of like Tennessee, Georgia, North, South Carolina, Virginia. You can see that it obviously look a little different here. Euro has a pretty solid mass going on. But then you have like the Canadian model over here on the left, showing it a little bit broken up. The American model on the right, showing it a little bit broken up. But eventually, it does get a hold of itself on all the models here. And really by the afternoon or really the evening of Saturday, you can really see that the system really gets going here. We start to see some real heavy snow towards the Carolinas, maybe even portions of Georgia here, according to the Canadian model and whatnot. Like I mentioned, it's definitely really, really, it really gets going at this point here. And then, of course, we go into pretty much the morning, the later morning here of Sunday. And, you can really start to see maybe at this point some of the Northeast starting to get it. That's where the models tend to differ a little bit right now. I mean, you could see that the Canadian model doesn't have much snow happening for the Northeast at this time. You got the Euro that does show a bit of snow, and then you got the American GFS, which has it mostly off the coast as well. So then, of course, we work our way down into the evening of Sunday, and of course, you do got ourselves, like a pretty good amount of agreement that like eastern Massachusetts by Cape Cod could be dealing with a lot of heavy snow at this point. That is solid agreement there, and that's a really good possibility. And then, like I said, all the system should just be kind of rolling through pretty much through early Monday is whenever the system does kind of roll out of the region here. All right. Let's see here. The Weather Channel does that. Gotcha. Terry says, let's see, there is a model that combines a blend. What the national blend of that's the National Weather Service's blend of models. Yeah. Unfortunately, this program does have. I mean, it does have that model, but it doesn't have it for snowfall. Unfortunately. But yeah, absolutely. That's one of the blends for sure. Rose says we're in for a lot of wind too, right? I need to batten down everything. Yeah, so the wind is going to be another big thing. Absolutely.